Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review for a movie that I've wanted to see for a while. My mom saw it, she really liked it, and I happened to find out it's on Hulu, so I finally checked it out. It's based on a Stephen King short story from Night Shift. It's a short story, matter of fact. What my curiosity was is how they were going to take an 8-page long short story from like the 70s and turn it into a big hour-and-a-half long movie. It's been done a lot of the time with Stephen King's books and stuff, and short stories. It's been done a bunch of times, sometimes very horribly, more commonly than not very horribly, but it's been done very well. And this movie's called The Boogeyman. It came out, I believe, last year, 2023? Didn't even look it up. I should have done that. It would have been more professional. Yes, 2023. It's directed by Mr. Rob Savage, who I love. He has great movies like Host, which is a Shudder kind of laptop horror movie. He also has another film called Dash Cam that was an experience. I reviewed that here on the channel too in case you want to see it. But Host was my first film I ever saw on Shudder when I first got my account on Shudder back in the day. And I like Rob Savage a lot. This is a really solid, above average, but sometimes generic version of another movie that I'll talk about. You probably already know some of the comparisons, but I'll get to it anyway for my channel. The Boogeyman is... I was hoping it would be better than it was, but it was surprisingly better than what I expected. I didn't hear a lot of people in the horror communities really talk about this movie that much back when it was coming out. But again, my mom saw it, my grandfather saw it with her when they were on a beach trip I guess last year, and they really enjoyed it, matter of fact. My grandfather's not a horror fan, so that should really tell you a lot about how surprising this movie kind of is. Now, to me, I think The Boogeyman is well shot. I think there's a lot of really good directorial choices, if you will, because Rob Savage is great. This is also written by like 3 different people. You have the guy who did Black Swan, then you have the team who did Haunt, one of my favorite Halloween movies of all time, one of my favorite Halloween slashers of all time. They also did another movie. What am I forgetting? They did Haunt and they did something else. But anyway, they're all good. All 3 of the writers that were tied to this project are really, really great and talented people. Quiet Place, that's what they did. They did A Quiet Place, the Jim from The Office movie. But anyway, I really respect and love all of these people. I think they made a generic version of Lights Out from David Sandberg. And I hate to say that. I love Lights Out, though. Lights Out, when that came out, whether it be the short film or the actual movie that Sandberg had made from his own short film, let me tell you, that was like nothing I'd ever seen in my life. I don't know if even more hardcore horror fans had seen the stuff that I saw in Lights Out before that. I'm not really sure. But the things that Lights Out did were so unique for their time in, 2016, 2015? It's been a long time since that movie dropped, and I love it. I have actually 2 copies in my collection because my dad bought me a copy, and I think my mom bought me a copy too. They aren't together, so that's why. But I've kept both because I just love Lights Out. I think it's a fantastic film. One of the most surprising horror films in probably the last 15, 20 years, to be honest with you. And I love David Sandberg. I think he's really great. But this feels, again, kind of like a generic version of that. Basically, we have a story about grief and loss. It's kind of the theme of the movie, to be honest with you. It's about a family, and we really follow the oldest daughter in this family. The dad is a therapist, psychologist, something like that. He works in his home. People come to his house, in his house, to do these meetings. How the fuck do people stay comfortable with that, by the way? That would terrify me, to let people that I don't know in my house, and that kind of goes bad for them anyway when the guy from Dark Knight, Polka Dot Man himself, shows up and has some creepy moments with them. Anyway, the dad is psychiatrist, therapist, something like that. His oldest daughter, I believe, is in high school at this current moment. His youngest daughter is like probably middle school, late elementary school, somewhere in there. She's scared to death of the dark for some reason, as most children are, but this film really plays that up. Does it already start to sound like a ripoff of Lights Out? It kind of is, to be honest with you. Like 10 years after Lights Out came out, now we have The Boogeyman. And I don't remember anything about the short story, by the way. I haven't read this book, matter of fact, in probably 10 years at this point. I do need to reread it at some point because I do like Stephen King and I think he really does best in a lot of his short story work until you get to Nightmares and Dreamscapes, which is shockingly awful for an 800-page collection. Anyway, I think both of the daughters gave a really good performance, especially the oldest daughter. There's a lot of focus on her and how much she misses her mom. They had a mom who died in a car crash, and the dad doesn't really like to talk about it. He really doesn't talk to his daughters about this stuff. My shirt is so weird. Why is this so uncomfortable? Some shirts are made a certain way for men. I don't know if women have this problem. My wife never talks about it, but I talk to her about my problem as a man. A lot of shirts just don't feel right around the armpits and stuff. It's very weird. I don't think it's too small or anything. It just doesn't fit right. That doesn't make any sense. But you didn't expect to get all that conversation out of a Boogeyman review, did you? Not that you wanted a Boogeyman review anyway, but I figured it's a new release. It's a Stephen King release. I'll talk about it. Whatever. The daughter has a lot of focus put on her about, just in general, her missing her mom. She wears her mom's clothes to school and stuff, and she's really kind of a loner. She had a best friend that she grew up with. This best friend's kind of branched out and started hanging out with other people. They're kind of assholes that don't really like our main chick. And there's also a threat that kind of comes into play that the little daughter is the first to really notice about the dark. Maybe there's some kind of monster in the dark of some sort. Once again, Polka Dot Man, or the guy from Dark Knight that they thought was the Joker, shows up at the therapist's house, is talking about a lot of stuff that freaks out the dad. Dad tries to call the police. The man ends up dead inside of his house somehow, and they're not really sure what's going on there. But there is a creature that happens to be hanging out in the dark, and I don't really understand the logistics of this creature. It's not something like in Lights Out, where the Lights Out monster to me always seemed like the type that when you turn the lights out, of course you can see it, but it seems to live in this other parallel dimension that kind of like, it's not said, but it kind of implied to me that the Lights Out monster is just kind of able to transport itself wherever it wants to while in whatever this darkness is. If dark is a different like reality than light of some sort, that's where the Lights Out monster seems to exist. This monster that the kids call the Boogeyman, I don't understand how it works. It's never really explained. And not that Lights Out monster is either. But this monster is not really explained in a way that I'm not sure if the monster is stuck to a house all the time, because that doesn't work within the story. It seems to be all over the place all the time, kind of like the Lights Out monster, which if that's the case, it's never really said, never really implied. It's just kind of happening all the time in a weird, nonsensical way to be able to drive the plot forward. This isn't a traditional like haunted house story or anything, just like how Lights Out isn't. This is Lights Out without cleverness, to be honest with you. And I love Rob Savage, but that's what it feels like. It feels like the studio wanted that kind of movie with a lot of jump scares, which this movie has that. Lights Out had that too, but Lights Out was clever. It had a lot of utilization of just weird imagery, things in the dark that look a certain way. You peer into it, you think you see some eyes. Might not be when you turn the lights on. It might just be the reflection of some kind of glass in your room. This movie does that too. A lot. Like a lot. There's a couple of moments that I wish we had not had any kind of jump scare or had a character notice things that should have been in the background that people never notice until you see people online talking about it. Like in the Haunting of Hill House adaptation from Mike Flanagan. This doesn't do that. This isn't smart enough to do that for some reason, and I think it really would have benefited this movie. As good as I do think it is, as solid as I do think it is, as above average as I do think it is, because it is a Rob Savage movie, if any other director had made this, they would have made a really even worse, more generic version of Lights Out, and it would have sucked. But at least Rob Savage having the talent, he had the writer, behind the scenes having the talent they had. A lot of the issues I have with this movie seem like they're more of studio interference, to me. I feel that all of these people would have written and created a better movie on their own. I'm convinced this is a studio interference movie, despite what anybody says. But the Boogeyman, the way he moves around and everything, I don't understand that. I don't understand, does he have to come out of a closet? How does this whole thing work? There's no urban legend play or anything like that, so that's kind of a shame to me. It really doesn't seem like they have a grasp on what this thing is. Where does it go when the lights are on? Where does it go during the daytime? They should have explored that a little bit more to try to separate itself from Lights Out, I think, and they don't at all, from what I could tell. But I did enjoy the film. I did have a good time watching it. I just wish there was, I wish it was better. I wish it was more intricate, I guess, without expanding the time, because it's like an hour and 40 minutes, which is perfect for this movie. The pacing is perfect on it. It doesn't have many many draggy moments. There's a couple of pieces of imagery that every time I think about this movie, I will think about these particular shots or scenes or moments that are kind of quick, that are really eerie. It was eerie. It creeped me out a little bit, to be honest with you. The characters are well-founded. I like the dad. I kind of feel bad for him, even though he doesn't really communicate with his daughters. Even as a psychologist, therapist, whatever he is, that's his profession. But he really doesn't talk to his daughters as much as he should. Matter of fact, the oldest daughter's kind of a mom character to the younger daughter, which is a shame. You know, she's doing a job that her dad should be doing at this point, despite his grief, his pain. And he doesn't have anybody to talk to, really. He doesn't want to talk to anybody, and you can't help but relate to them. The youngest daughter's fears of whatever's in the darkness, this boogeyman thing, it's kind of cool. I like her. I think that they gave her a good performance for a kid actor. It's got good things about it. It has good writing. And again, some good set pieces that I like. Towards the end of the film, it gets a little wacky, I guess is what I'll put it as. But aside from that, it's a well-shot film. The cinematography looks good. There's practically no practical effects, to be honest with you, and Lights Out really tried to utilize that as much as it could with clever editing and clever writing, like I said. This movie has so much CGI. Even down to the boogeyman itself is very much filled with CGI, but there are some cool things that you get to see the boogeyman do in the last, 10 minutes of the film. Aside from that, the rest of the time, the boogeyman just reminds me of, the Blair Witch 2016 or 2014 movie, the one that Adam Wingard made, the third one. A lot of the time, it just reminds me of that in an even worse way, to be honest with you. But it has a lot wrong with it. You know what I think would have enhanced this movie a little bit more? Aside from less studio interference, to me, a good theme, like a good score, I think would have really saved this. Like we would all hear it and we would know that's the Boogeyman song. I think that really could have benefited this movie. It doesn't have that. It doesn't really have much music to begin with. But, it is what it is. The Boogeyman. I don't really have much to say about this movie. As a Stephen King adaptation, it's kind of different. There's a lot of child death in the movie, let me tell you that. Not even from just our main character kids. That's not really a spoiler, to be honest with you. But with other people, other families and stuff, especially in the cold open of the movie, that was pretty surprising, to be honest with you. I didn't expect it to open up that way, and it's kind of shocking, because you don't see that often. The Boogeyman is cool as a Stephen King adaptation. All of these people involved that I know have incredible talent, like Rob Savage, the writers. I know these people can do better. I refuse to believe this is anything more than a studio interference movie, but again, these guys, even dealing with that, made quite a good movie for what it was, despite it being a Lights Out ripoff. I'm surprised I hadn't heard anybody, as many reviews and discussions as I heard about this movie. I cannot believe I haven't heard one person discuss how much this is like Lights Out. It kind of surprised me a little bit. But with all that being said, despite my frustrations with it, I do think it's above average, and I do think it's worth your time if you haven't seen it yet. Again, I know I'm really, really late to the game, but I do recommend it. It's kind of a hidden horror to me, but I'm not going to put it on that playlist. It's above average, it's pretty cool, and if I'm being honest with you, if I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I would give it kind of a low 4 out of 5 stars. This is consistent in its writing for the most part. I wish the monster had more explanation. Maybe they were going to save that for a sequel, I don't know. But this film had the time to be able to explain more about that creature, or at least explain how it works. It doesn't even take the time out to do that, which is why I keep calling it a Lights Out ripoff. But I did like it. I did think it was pretty cool, and it's worth your time if you want to take a shot. If you're just bored, you want something different to watch you haven't seen before, or if you happen to be a big Stephen King fan, this is a little out there as an adaptation of one little 8-page short story, but it's got its moments. I liked it for the most part. Anyway, have you seen The Boogeyman? What did you think about it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments about it down in the comment section down below, and my review down below. Thank you guys. I'll have a couple more videos up for you today. Happy Valentine's Day, God bless you all, and goodbye.